Let's stay on Washington, Jamie. And your wide receivers are Terry McLaurin and CeeDee Lamb among their breakout wide receivers. We talked about Lamb. So McLaurin.
You want to talk about a guy that we talked a lot about?
All right. So you might be one of the highest in the industry, I feel like, on McLaurin. Not by much, and I'm just guessing about that. I'm sure we can find some consensus, some rankings. But I feel like you're really high on McLaurin.
Yeah, I love what I've seen the first 2 years. I love the addition of Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'll give this stat again. Fitzpatrick has, since 2010, had 8 seasons with at least 9 starts, and his number one receiver over that span. Steve Johnson 3 times, Kendall Wright, Andre Johnson, Brandon Marshall twice, and Devontae Parker. All those guys had at least 128 targets on the year. And 7 times that number one receiver had 72 catches, 6 times 1,000 yards, and 3 times 10 or more touchdowns. Now, some of those numbers obviously aren't eye-popping, but that's the floor. And again, we're talking about guys like Kendall Wright and Devontae Parker, and not to disrespect anybody else, but Stevie Johnson and what Brandon Marshall was when he got him, and what Andre Johnson was when he got him. So McLaurin's entering his 3rd season. This is when the jumping off point hopefully happens. He's had some bad luck, as we've said. Only 4 touchdowns last season. So I just think he's going to be a 150 target guy. If we have to move that bar a little bit now with the 17 games, 160 target guy. He's going to have the chance, I think, to be in the 90 plus catch range. He's going to have a chance for 1,500 yards. He's going to have a chance for 10 touchdowns. I just love what Fitzpatrick does for his number one guy, and I think McLaurin's going to be the next of that group.
Yeah, this makes me a little nervous about Gibson, because we're talking about Gibson being used more as a pass catcher, and when I think about Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think of him just going bombs away and not dinking and dunking. So it might hurt Gibson, but it absolutely helps the argument for McLaurin, who's just such a terrific talent that I think Fitzpatrick has already fallen in love with him if he hasn't. Like, he should have already.
Real quick question for you guys. Real quick question. If you drafted Gibson in round 2 and McLaurin in round 3,
I did that today.
You're going to win the championship.
I did that today, exactly.
No, I'm just.
That's a lot. That's a lot of faith in Washington's.
And I'll tell you, I had some pause. So this was, again, our pick by pick. So it's a 4-man draft of myself, Dave, Heath, and Chris Towers, and we each take 3 teams of the 12. And so with the 5th pick, I took Saquon Barkley in the 1st round, Gibson in the 2nd round, and I was staring at Terry McLaurin or Allen Robinson. This is PPR. No, I'm sorry. It was McLaurin or DK Metcalf were my 2 choices. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take the guy that I feel I have the most confidence in and the guy that I like the best. And I think both, as we saw at times last year, can be very successful. So there's a lot to put on Ryan Fitzpatrick's shoulders to say you can support 2 upper echelon, top tier fantasy players. But you know what? I think he showed you that at times throughout the course of his career. I don't know what the running backs did. I can go back and look if you really want to know that research of when these receivers were at their best. But we saw Myles Gaskin play well last year when, the receivers.
Yeah, but that's when Parker really wasn't that good. It's like Parker was great.
Yeah, but I can't tell you off the top of my head when Tua was playing and Gaskin was doing what he's doing.
I looked at it. Fitzpatrick actually kind of crushed his reputation of not throwing to running backs last year. He threw to Myles Gaskin a lot more than Tua.
Good.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot. Look, there's a lot there.
We'll take it.
It is kind of interesting. And Jamie, by the way, according to Shraggy B, you are the 2nd highest in the industry on McLaurin in non-PPR, where you have him 7th. You have him 9th in PPR, but you are 2nd highest on him in non-PPR.
There you go, Jamie. Pump that up. 14 games McLaurin and Gibson played in together. Keep in mind the offense then is not as good as the offense now. They both had double-digit PPR points 8 of 14 games. If you're looking for a little bit more, call it 13 or more PPR points each. That happened 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And once Gibson's toe injury happened, it was kind of a mess overall in Washington, but certainly for Gibson, so it wasn't going to happen. Where they would both get 13 PPR in the same game easily, but they were vibing together.
Okay, all right, Dave. I'm sorry to do this to you, but give me like a minute on Marquise Brown. Sure. I want to get some emails.
So what happened last year through the first 10 games? They tried throwing to him.
I'm sorry.
What happened?
I have news for you too. So when you're done, sorry.
All right,
Okay.
Marquise Brown, go for it.
They were throwing to him further downfield. He wasn't as efficient. They started to shorten his routes, and they used him more in the red zone on crossing routes and off of play action. And his efficiency spiked. His last 8 games were outstanding. He had 6 touchdowns in those last 8 games. And I imagine that they learned the best way to use Hollywood Brown based on that. They'll still take deep shots at him. He's going to be the fastest player on the field. But I think they're going to continue to use him as more of a short and mid-range type of target. And I think that'll make him, I think it'll make Lamar more comfortable to throw to him. And I love the first half schedule for Baltimore. Second half of the schedule is rough. This is a receiver that I'm drafting to be, I drafted him as a wide receiver 2 in one of the pick-by-pick teams that we did today, and I hated that. But as a wide receiver, because I loaded up at other positions. But if you get him as a wide receiver 3, you use him through October, and then Halloween comes and someone says trick or treat, you say trick, you throw Marquise Brown in a trade and you get him off your squad when the schedule gets really, really rough.
Okay. Or if you really like him, you could dress up as Marquise Brown on Halloween. Jamie,
and even like if he does great in the first half of the year and just kind of so-so to the end, toward the end of the season, I still think he'll have better numbers this year than he's had at any point in his career.
breaking news.
According to Matt Nagy on the Chris Collinsworth podcast, Justin Fields will be the number 2 quarterback in week 1. Andy Dalton is the week 1 starter, and nothing is going to change that.
They've already made it that way.
Nagy, Andy Dalton is our starter. Justin is our number 2, and we are going to stick with this plan. You just got to trust the plan.
I trust it for the Giants because they've got the Bears pick. So looking forward to that. They won't be as bad as the Texans, but they could.
I mean, how can he stand by that if Andy Dalton is just okay in training camp and Justin Fields is on fire?
Could be motivating the kid. You know, you never know.
He can't commit to that at this point. I think that's kind of not smart.
Jerry Judy also left practice with a tummy issue.
Oh no,
I've been there.
Yeah. You can follow and stream Fantasy Football Today on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify right now, go to the FFT show page, hit that rectangle follow button so that when new episodes are dropped, they'll be at the top of your feed. And if you're listening elsewhere or watching on YouTube, give Spotify a try and drop us a follow.